Hello and welcome to Thursday AI for May 21st. My name is Alex Volkov. I'm an AI evangelist with weights and biases from CoreWeave. I'm super excited about this week. I'm super excited to tell you about the Google I/O week, Google Heavy Week this week. I went to Google I/O for the third time in a row. What is happening? Okay, there we go. I went to Google I/O for the third time in a row to cover the Google I/O conference. Shout out to the DeepMind team for the invitation. We also went live from there, and I can't wait to tell you all about this. With me to cover the show is LDJ and Wolfram, so hopefully we'll bring them back up. LDJ, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
What is the standout kind of thing that you saw on from the Google experience?
Gemini Omni is probably the most interesting thing. Of course, 3.5 Flash is actually there's a lot of things to say on Gemini Flash, both good and bad, but definitely interesting.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to chat about Gemini 3.5 Flash, and I know the Wolfram already ran some tests. Wolfram, welcome. How are you?
My favorite this week is basically the Flash model. Flash 3.5, which is a big jump from 3.0. And with the release, Google not just released a new model, it also means that everybody who is using Google search or is using Android and the Gemini assistant now has a much more capable AI at their fingertips. So that is millions, billions of users. And basically, that means the whole intelligence that is available has basically, the bar has been risen. So that was a big news for me.
I think that my feelings are the same. So I was sitting with this after the Google I/O release, and I see some comments as well that Google ship misses, etc. This was less about model capability on its own, and more about, like Wolfram saying, a general uplift over all of Google surfaces in terms of how much intelligence everybody gets. And I think that this is the point that I haven't seen talked about. Definitely very happy to chat with you, Wolfram. I know you're very heavy into the Google ecosystem. Google said that the Gemini app on its own has 900 million users. Do you guys see this? This is like rivaling ChatGPT, where, as far as I remember, LDJ, please correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I remember, ChatGPT kind of like plateaued around 900 million. We didn't see like a 1 billion mark crossed from ChatGPT, so it seems like it stopped growing, and now they're switching kind of the direction towards Codex growth. Gemini has caught up in terms of just weekly users, but in addition to this, Gemini is everywhere. Gemini is sitting inside the AI overview and the AI mode on search, which is, I don't know how many people use search, but 3.5 billion users. Gemini is going to come to YouTube. Do you guys see this with Ask YouTube feature where you could like chat and like go directly into YouTube? So that's 3 billion. They had this chart in the beginning where like how many apps of Google are being used by over 1 billion people, and it's like 7 or 8. And then they said how many are used by 3 billion plus, and there's like 5 apps. There's, Gmail, Drive, YouTube, and all of them. And I think that this is like the biggest deal there. Most of these apps would use Gemini, and all of these apps got a speed improvement, significant speed improvement. We're gonna have to talk about the speed of Gemini, in addition to a intelligence improvement. So while I did see a lot of commentary about the price of Gemini 3.5 Flash and the fact that it's like token hungry, I think that like I think that just some of these folks on Reddit and X are missing the point a little bit. And I will have to say this out loud. For some reason, and this is maybe my take on the X ecosystem and commentary about AI, the latest algorithm just loves highlighting negative views and takes. So I've seen just a lot of those just out of the blue with accounts that I don't follow with minimum engagement just like show up. And I started noticing a little bit of a like, hey, I'm getting a little bit of a this feels different than before. So like all of them, the second you like dunk on something, you get views. So I think this has to do with that as well. LDJ, comments on anything that we just covered? Would love to hear from you what you're seeing. We want to give our folks here like
Mhm.
an honest, full review of the releases.
Yeah, so when it comes to the Gemini user growth, I am a bit skeptical of what they're reporting and how they're reporting it
Mm.
because they do have Google Search, they have, like you mentioned, YouTube and
Yeah.
Gemini increasingly being
So when they
integrated
say
to
Gemini user
platforms.
growth specifically, they talk
Mhm.
about the Gemini kind of interface for the model. So Gemini, Google.com, or the actual app
Mhm.
on iOS and Android. not like everyone who uses the model across Google. This is like literally the Gemini app.
Okay, and they're saying they have like
900 million.
900. Wow. Okay, yeah,
Yes,
that's impressive. That's more than I thought it would be. Yeah.
Well, I told my fiance about this. She's like, I don't know any one person who uses Gemini. It's like,
Yeah.
I use Gemini all the time. When
Yeah.
I need something, I just like click, 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 Gemini.
And sorry, is that monthly active
I think monthly.
users?
I think monthly.
Monthly. Okay, interesting. Because ChatGPT is their 900 million was reported as weekly active users.
Yeah,
So
in November and December, and I think
That's true.
early like February as well. Like I don't.
On the other thing you were saying though, I definitely do see the like negative takes being pushed by the algorithm. People love seeing something being just like this person got destroyed, so
Yeah.
I see that for sure.
I will just say, folks who are just joining us, that Logan Kilpatrick, member of the technical staff, I think is the official title, from Google DeepMind, head of Google AI Studio, and a fairly long-time friend of the pod as well. Logan is going to join us at 10 a.m. Pacific. So stick with us, or if you have to do something, go and do and then come back. Logan Kilpatrick is going to join us to talk about the Google AI Studio releases, in addition to just releases from Google I/O. Google AI Studio is kind of a central piece now to the whole AI experience at Google. Logan is, just incredible dude to cover kind of the reception, and like very, very known in the ecosystem. Wolfram, what in your ecosystem of Google related things have gotten a little bit more exciting after this release? After
Well,
kind of the
definitely,
keynote.
the assistant I'm using a lot on my phone is my Google Assistant or Gemini Assistant, because I can unlock it without even touching the phone. So I can just say something and it listens immediately, which I do not have with Hermes Agent. So I still use the Google or Gemini Assistant a lot for small tasks in the house and so on. And it's always great if the intelligence is rising. The last one, when it was at 3, Gemini Flash 3, it was already a big upgrade from before. And I'm excited that it is now even higher. It's already at a level where it's very hard to tell the difference because the previous version worked so well. But I'm also using it for news summaries and stuff like that. So the more intelligence that is available, the better it is. And even my mother profits from this. She has no idea that a new model came out or anything about this, but the default has changed. And now she has more capable AI at her fingertips, which happens to basically the whole populace. And that is a big uplift.
We also have to talk, and I think we'll talk at length, and then we're going to dive deep into all the topics that we have very soon. And again, Logan Kilpatrick is going to join us at around an hour or so to fully cover. We have to talk about Antigravity. Folks, we've been tracking Antigravity since the acquisition of Windsurf. The Rocky acquisition, to remind you, do you guys remember there was a whole half of the Antigravity, half of the Windsurf team went to Google with the 2 billion plus something acquisition. And then some of the rest folks got picked up by Cognition, and now Cognition Windsurf is part of Cognition. Antigravity became kind of like an internal tool to Google. I had an awesome pleasure to chat with Kevin Howe again. Kevin is leading product and engineering manager for the Antigravity team at Google. Sir Demis Hassabis and a Nobel Prize laureate, Demis Hassabis, who I chatted with for a brief moment. And next year, I'm going to interview Demis on Thursday, folks. And the third one was Varun Mohan. Varun is the co-founder and kind of like the leader of CEO of Windsurf, and then leading Antigravity in Google. And this just showed me how strongly Google is coalescing behind the agentic coding agent tool as a general intelligence. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but like I think everybody must understand how meticulously planned every minute of Google I/O is, and how much that says. The fact that like Varun and Antigravity is the third on stage in terms of like who presents. Remember, Google has YouTube, Google has Gmail, Google has Drive, Google has shopping, Google has ads. There's so many like VPs and like more things in Google that just you have to realize how important this is. The Antigravity, this thing that they just purchased. LDJ, remind me please, but like I think a year ago, less than a year ago or so.
I think something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, not that long ago, is now on the lips of Sundar Pichai. Demis mentioned it, and Varun, the fairly new non-highly exec. Varun is not on the like C-suite execution as far as I know. Shows up third on Google I/O. It's just like to show you how strongly Google rearranges itself across agentic.
And it shows up everywhere now. It's not just an IDE that you install, you can use it online. And what Antigravity itself, the Antigravity 2.0, that is now like a cursor, more like a Codex code, actually. Basically the same, whereas the agentic engineering is in the focus. You don't even have to look at the source code anymore. That was a big thing when Antigravity launched initially. It was built not just as an IDE, it was an agentic coding agent orchestrator. And I used it a lot for that reason. And what was confusing was that they also had their Gemini CLI. And now that is also being subsumed and turned into the Antigravity as well. So it's
I
now
chatted
just
with
one.
Kevin. I'm having a hard time getting the vibes of the community because I feel like the negative takes are surfacing more than regular like overall takes. But the Gemini CLI going away, which was an open source kind of like command line interface towards the Antigravity CLI, did trick some folks the wrong way, did rub some folks the wrong way, specifically because of the open source nature.
Yeah.
This is something that Google gets blamed on a lot, and this is definitely feedback that we're willing to share as well. There's a lot of surfaces, a lot of names, a lot of different products, and a lot of products that Google launches and they don't work, and they stop kind of supporting this and try new ones. A reminder is Jules and Firebase Studio and different like agentic tools that Google have tried. And I for one am very happy the Antigravity is the one that kind of like is winning the race and showing up everywhere at Google. Go ahead, Wolfram.
That's funny because I was even fearing that Antigravity may happen the same thing, that it would be canceled, because I was following its development very closely and it was too slow for my taste. And I wanted it to be open source. I always said I would love to contribute, to have my agent improve it to my liking. And unfortunately, it has not been opened. Instead, they even closed the Gemini. So from my perspective, that is a sad thing, because I want my agent to see the code, that then it can understand the code. It can work better with the code. That's a great thing about Hermes. It can see its own code and improve itself. I have dozens of patches on top of it.
Yes.
And I can't do the same with Antigravity. That is disappointing, actually.
So there's also the agent Spark and Antigravity agents as well. So they shipped also a bunch of agents and managed agents in the SDK, which you can like run managed agents in their sandboxes in the cloud, in Google Cloud Round. There's like a bunch of like agentic shipments that are happening. Definitely the year of agents continues from 2025 and now across products as well. The thing that we must absolutely talk about, I unfortunately don't have access to test yet, is Google Spark. Google Spark is a new OpenClaw competitor, I think, from Google. Jay, have you seen anything on the Google Spark thing? Have you looked into that release as well?
Not much, actually. Not as much as I should.
All right, so I'll ask Wolfram. Wolfram, what do you think about Google Spark? Are you excited about this?
Google has the advantage that they have all the surfaces already. You have already Google search, so they have the search covered, which if you use another agent, you need a search solution for this. And they have that solved perfectly. They have Google Mail, they have Google Docs, so all the things you usually have to have some interfaces for your agent that you have to maintain and so on. That is all basically solved. So you get an agent that has already access to all of your personal data, can ingest that, use it to get to know you immediately. So that has a lot of advantages that way. So that is a Google advantage, I would say.
And shout out, Colin calls out our commentator here. Google Spark struck me as an OpenClaw competitor as well. I don't know if it's a competitor per se, because I chatted with the Gemini team. So one of the coolest things that the folks at DeepMind invited me to was kind of a reception with the Gemini team. I got to chat with Josh Woodward, who is the VP in charge of Google Labs and the Google AI Studio. I think he's Logan's boss. And they basically just asked for feedback from that whole room. And the feedback I gave them, like, hey, the whole point of my agent, like Hermes, is self-improvement. I can tell it what it did wrong, and it writes itself and patches itself from kind of like what you have as well. And this is the whole thing. And also, I want to port my memories. Like Wolfram, you have Amy, I have Wolfred, Ryan has R2. We keep talking about our agents as entities, and those entities, we need to like travel to another agentic harness. And if you guys won't enable this in Spark, it's gonna suck. Why am I not using the Google tools for this? Why am I using third-party tools and CLIs that disconnect often? This is like the number one feedback for them. It's like, yeah, okay, well, wait for Spark. So I for one, I'm very excited to test out Spark and see what it can do. especially if you could write code. I know they're going to support skills. They're going to support like in MCPs. And I think they're going to be the best one at the Google integration itself. Like the read the Gmails, do a fan out search across all your emails, for example, something that most assistants need to do. And unlike OpenClaws and Hermeses, which run fairly insecurely, and we'll have to talk about the other fucking malware attacks and supply chain attacks. Unlike those who are like insecure, unlikely that people will just install those who are just regular folks. But Google has such a vast surface area of products that they can bring the agentic revolution that we've been talking about since, for the past 2 years in the pod, but definitely since December when we started like smelling OpenClaw in the air. Google can just like bring this to regular people via a Gmail pop-up, and bang, put 1 billion people using agentic tools. That's definitely very likely to happen once Spark is kind of operational, if it works.
And the attack surfaces we usually have is when untrusted information enters the system, which can happen if you have your agent check your mail. It can happen when your agent does web search or research or of any kind. And those are the things that Google can also offer you, already audited and secured. So if it goes to Google Mail, it can have already removed all the prompt injection attacks. And if it uses the Google search tools, they could already remove all of that or just deliver from their cache, stuff like that. So they have a lot of options to make everything more secure.
And the code execution will 100% likely happen in sandboxes and not like just running on your computer like willy. We switched from OpenClaw to Hermes, at least for now. I'm not saying this is the end all, but at least for now. Last week, Codex released Codex Mobile. We chatted about this on the show a little bit, but I think it came like a little bit of the end of the show, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. But Codex released Codex Mobile. Codex, the iOS, is now in the Google, sorry, in OpenAI ChatGPT app. There's a Codex button, and you connect it remotely to your Codex running on your machine, executing code. I started switching completely to Codex for many of the queries that I had previously to my OpenClaw Hermes. Not only that, because they have the native connectors to Gmail and Calendar, like all these, I noticed that they perform faster and better than just the CLIs that Hermes have. I ported Wolfram entirely with the memories and like everything into Codex, and just compare. I just send one into Hermes and one query into Codex. Codex just delivers much faster. I think it's due to not just the harness being better, but like the connectors being just more, proper and not open source CLIs that disconnect all the time. I don't know if this is also, folks who are listening, if this is your experience as well or not, but I wanted to hear from you if you're using Codex Mobile.
I'm using Codex as my second main agent, basically. So it's Hermes and Codex, and I have both on my Mac Mini.
Yes.
That was one of the reasons I had my Hermes on Home Assistant, where I made the add-on myself. So that was solved, but I wanted to have a Mac Mini so I could use Codex computer use, because that was something I still had issues with Hermes doing it over the network. So I put both on there, and I'm using Codex a lot now. So it's a great agent, and they can work together. I even had the computer use and browser use being used to have Codex control my Hermes through MetaMost, which I use as my self-hosted interface. So they were working together on different things, like upgrading Hermes, where I had so many patches on top that the agents had to make sure that everything still works, which worked flawlessly again, which I have to say. So that has been one of the reasons I switched, because the upgrades were so disappointing and so troublesome with Claw. With Hermes, it has always been almost a pleasure to upgrade.
Yeah, Hermes is a pleasure to upgrade, and Codex
is amazing. I'm using it so heavily that the interface itself is already becoming a limiting factor. If you have so many chats going on and multiple at the same time, it's a bit difficult to keep track of this. You can use projects on, but yeah, I see it. And one thing OpenAI has is their subscription. You can use the same subscription, so you can use GPT 5.5 in both Codex and in Hermes. And I think that is a major difference. Even if another model would be slightly better, why would I switch if I can use the subscription for this? I think that is something also a lot of people have to keep in mind. You have so many tokens to use, and OpenAI even reset regularly, which is also
regularly.
Fun
this is great. All right, folks, I think enough banter. Comments, please, from folks who are watching us live. I would love to hear from you if you've used Codex, if you use Codex remotely. Very unlike OpenAI, they released the Codex remote thing on both apps, both ChatGPT iOS and Android, which is like very, very uncommon as well. So that's great. I think we're going to jump into the TLDR. We'll just say hi to Nisten, our fourth co-host for today. What's up, Nisten? And then we're going to jump into the TLDR. We have a lot to talk about. Let's jump to TLDR. All right, welcome to the TLDR, the section in Thursday AI where we talk about everything that happened major in the world of AI news this week. And we used to say everything. And recently we're saying this is a curated list of news of what we deem most important, because saying everything is impossible to cover. Google I/O had a lot of launches, and not all of them are actually relevant to the folks at Thursday AI, but the most important one. So today, your host and guest, Alex Volkov, AI evangelist with Weights and Biases and CoreWeave. And then we also have Wolfram Ravenwolf, also AI Avengers at Weights and Biases CoreWeave. Yam is not with us today, but Nisten, LDJ, and we're going to have a friend of the pod, Logan Kilpatrick, the member of technical staff on the Google AI Studio team, join us in around an hour to help us cover the Google I/O 2026 release stream. I think the fairest way to call this is agentic across Google. Google has introduced multiple things. I think the three main launches that happened on Google I/O was Gemini 3.5 Flash. We had Gemini 3.5 Flash. We had Google launched Omni, which is their new MIMO, multimodal inputs and multimodal outputs model, fully trained to also output video, incredible video. So we're going to chat about that. They also relaunched Antigravity 2.0, which is an agentic coding runner. We're gonna have to harness SDK, CLI. There's a bunch of stuff about anti-gravity that we'll have to cover. And they launched a bunch of other stuff for developers that we would love to chat with Nisten about as well, including managed agents and the new interactions API that's stateful on their side. So we're gonna talk about that as well. They also launched glasses. Did you guys see this? They teased glasses with Gentle Monster and Warby Parker. So we have the Meta Ray-Bans and we've been using them, and Google is finally coming out with a set of smart AI glasses, Gemini embedded AI glasses on their own, which is absolutely great to see. And I think there's a bit of a controversy about Gemini 3.5 Flash, specifically around the Flash naming. I think they launched this and showed some evaluations, so we're going to show those as well. I would definitely want to cover the experience itself. So as on the third year in a row, Thursday AI is getting a great front row seat as part of the builders community at Google I/O. So I was there in Mountain View meeting a bunch of people. I had the breakfast with Jeff Dean, chief scientist of Gemini, which is incredible. Chief scientist of Google, which is absolutely incredible. On a whim, I also got to interview two great folks, Kevin Hu from Antigravity, a friend of the pod, and Ali Chevik from also the member of the technical staff. So I'm going to put those interviews up a little bit later as well. And I got to shake hands with them. It was just an incredible thing. And also pretty much all of the influencers that talk about AI were there. It's kind of incredible the type of people we ran into. So I also want to talk about the experience of Google I/O at the Shoreline Theater, in addition to just the launches as well. In addition to this, there wasn't a lot of news. I don't know if you guys remember previously, Google I/O used to be undercut by OpenAI just before the I/O. Famously, the advanced voice mode was announced kind of just before Project Astra. The only news that I remember that came before Google I/O is that Andre Carpati is joining Anthropic. Andre Carpati, who left all the major labs, co-founder of OpenAI, and then led the AI Tesla, went to Anthropic. There's not a lot to say about this besides the fact that pretty much everybody kept asking everybody else, hey, did you see that Andre Carpati is joining Anthropic? But there's a few other Anthropic news on there, specifically around via the SpaceX IPO filing, which is also something we should mention. It was announced that Anthropic is going to pay $1.25 billion per month for AI compute at the Colossus facility from SpaceX. Do you guys see this at the Memphis kind of like Colossus facility? As a brief reminder, space uncle Elon Musk very famously called Anthropic misanthropic and said that they're not going to make it, etc. And now he's selling GPU compute to them. I find it really funny. I find it just absolutely hilarious that now Anthropic is paying directly. I found some jokes from folks who are saying, hey, when I get Opus from the XAI servers, I feel a little bit of a different taste of Opus. I found it really funny as well.
The limits are a lot higher now too. The quotas.
They finally backed off. So they enabled double the quota for cloud design. literally doubled the quota for all of Cloud Design. The quotas, the weekly quotas are fine now. I think had this happened before the OpenCloud explosion, maybe OpenCloud wouldn't have gone the way it did with Opus usage, but I don't know. So this is Anthropic. Well, obviously Anthropic is also like very much close to filing for IPO. There's a bunch of other Anthropic news, like announcements about their profitability. You know, if you guys see that, I don't have the exact numbers. Let's go back to the TLDR. Here we have OpenAI's reasoning model autonomously disproves 80-year-old belief about the Erdos planet unit distance problem. OpenAI's AI solved a mathematics problem, a novel mathematics problem that humans were not able to solve before. A year ago, for the first time, AI won the IMO International Math Olympiad gold and kind of competed with the mathematicians on the same level. This year, AI for the first time solved a math problem called the Erdos planar unit distance problem that humans could not solve. This was an unsolved problem, and OpenAI scientists and math people were also shocked that we're there at this point. This is a huge deal. This is a huge milestone. When we talk to you about feeling that the singularity is coming early in February, this is the type of stuff that we're looking at. We're looking at solving physics problems. You know, we're looking at solving math problems. This is one such problem. Now, do I understand the math behind the Erdos planar unit distance problem? No. I have no idea about the 80-year mathematical belief that this is impossible to solve. Erdos planar unit distance problem, they believed something for 80 years. AI discovered a completely unique, novel solution to that. This is exactly what we're looking at. This is exactly what we're after when we were saying AI needs to like help humanity move forward. So I think it's a huge deal, despite the fact that I have no idea what that's about. The cute thing about this, they released the thinking traces, the summarized thinking traces, not the full thinking traces. It's really fun to read how the model got to that like breakthrough and said, whoa, it's scary to think about this as a breakthrough. We're gonna talk about that.
I was gonna say that there is previous over the past few months problems that have been solved by GPT 5.4 Pro and things like that that humans have not solved, but this seems like to be the first prominent one that actually has impact on mathematics and specific fields. So
yeah. And the highlight there is that the IMO models previously were like fine-tuned models. This is a general model. This model was not trained on solving Erdos like problems. This is a very general model that is solving this. We also have a very big update here. Cursor launches Composer 2.5. This is a continued fine-tuned training with a lot of data training on Kimi K 2.5, not 2.6. Partly trained on Colossus 2 from XAI. So folks, it's kind of interesting that now XAI is training Grok, XAI is training Composer, and XAI is running inference for Claude and maybe others ones as well. Composer 2.5 is much faster, and it's getting 69.3 on terminal bench, very close to Opus 4.7, but it runs at like a 10x better efficiency. So this is like an open source base model with the Cursor data that is being trained on Composer. And as a reminder, there is a standing agreement between the XAI folks and Cursor folks for a $10 billion collaboration for the Cursor data, which all of us provided when we used Cursor for a long time, and a potential $60 billion acquisition at around, before IPO or something, if that model works. So they're co-training Grok and Composer with the Cursor data. And if that works out, XAI will just acquire Cursor. And so the Composer release is a really good release. We should talk about this. This is the one thing that came out before Google I/O. It's 10x better efficiency than other big models. Alibaba also drops Qwen 3.7 Max Agentic frontier model. They claimed it ran the 35 hours autonomously and now controls physical robots. So that's pretty cool. We talked about Andrej Karpathy, the darling of the industry, one of the top people in AI, joining the pre-training team in Anthropic, leaving behind his I love this picture. Leaving behind his aspirations to change education forever. I think that this is why he decided not to take any labs. Very interesting. He did not go back to SpaceX, despite obviously co-founding the Tesla full self-drive team. And obviously the SpaceX IPO S filing was there. The thing that was not here, but did happen last week, is that while we were recording the Thursday podcast, the judge in Musk v. Altman, the jury in Musk v. Altman trial, the jury decided that whatever claims Elon Musk brought against OpenAI were past the statute of limitations. He brought them too late. They deliberated for 2 hours, and in a unanimous announcement, this is a follow-up for folks who follow the trial, the bombastic trial of the century as much as we did. They unanimously decided that Elon Musk brought those things too late, and they didn't even judge the case on the merits of the case, because the technicality is there is a statute of limitations. Apparently Elon Musk and the XAI folks will appeal this decision to the higher court, but for now OpenAI won. OpenAI won, and last we talked to you guys about that whole trial, we did not know what Elon Musk wanted, but then I went and found out. So in the newsletter, I literally sent Elon Musk wanted $135 billion in restitution for the charity stealing, in addition to leaving disbanding the OpenAI for-profit foundation, rolling it back to the non-for-profit foundation, and removing Sam Altman and Greg Brockman from this whole thing. So OpenAI's destiny was on trial here, and apparently the jury decided that this was past the statute of limitations, and Elon Musk brought those claims too late. Not guilty. All right. We're moving forward. In open source LLMs, we have Cohere. Cohere released their Command A+, finally in fully Apache 2 open source, a 218 billion mixture of X open source model with 25 billion parameters active. Released it as a great model. And Wolfram, I think you added this, and we touched on this briefly last time, but we didn't go dive into deep news research. Friends from the pod released Lighthouse Attention, sparse attention method, the 70x faster than standard attention at 500,000 context and beats dense training loss. So shout out to News Research for this. Let's move to tools in agentic engineering. Wolfram, you want to cover this one?
Yeah, so the cool thing is that the X-Developer account posted the instructions how to connect your Hermes or OpenClaw to your X subscription. So this has been possible before, but an official guide how to do it, that was, of course, great. And I think a lot of people use that to set it up. You basically just point your agent at the guide and say, hey, I want to set this up. You have to get an API key, and then your agent can use the...
No. You can click like an auth. They give you a link now, and you say, I approve. No API keys required. I think this is the highlight here. You can use your X premium subscription the same way that this like new Grok build is using it. And I think this is the highlight. You can just like press a button.
Right.
Yeah, so
it's not an API key, it's just some kind of credentials that you have to get.
Yeah, credentials.
I am very impressed with the Hermes setup experience. It took 2 minutes on stream on Discord last night. And for Claude, they make it so that, you just click and then you add the Anthropic website confirmation key in there. I also added the weights and biases API and the API key in there. And then it automatically found all the models in there and will let you select models and change them directly in the UI. Like they have done a great, even the setup itself, just installing Hermes on a container was, again, it was like in under 2 minutes. You're just up and running with
join the club now.
But folks, like on this piece of news, just super quick, you can now use your X subscription and XAI API keys directly, both Hermes and OpenClaw, but specifically for Hermes, for both of them, this opens up an entire suite of tools. You can use the Grok TTS, which is excellent and very, very fast to generate voices and clone voices. You can clone your own voice. You can create any voice for your like Hermes or OpenClaw. You can use X semantic search without using the API key. So this is a huge deal for people who don't want to pay XAI, the console, or want to run out. You can literally use your X subscription now as an additional, it's kind of like your OpenAI subscription. I love that. I think it's a main change in how we thought about X. Previously, you would buy the X premium subscription to maybe get some Grok, but to get a little bit boost on X. Now you can use that for an actual thing. And you can search semantically. This is like really, really, really dope because everything else searches via this bird CLI that Peter Steinberger released or via the browser sessions. It's all not kosher. It's all that can get you banned. Now there's an official way to use your X subscription to actually use the top of, the search. So I think that's absolutely great, and we should highlight this.
It's super useful because I hate it when I have some tweet, some post, I want to find it, I go through the search and it's so difficult. Now I can just tell my agent and it'll just search X, find everything. The news articles I sent you, that was also my agent where I said, okay, go through my likes and my bookmarks from the last week, from last Thursday, check which I bookmarked, which are news items, and then them to Alex. So basically, you can do such workflows now very easily without having to pay a lot of tokens.
All right, it's really, really great. Google launches managed agents in the Gemini API. Folks, this one is very, very big as well. Now, this is not going to give you a full open cloud Hermes in the Google Cloud, but it's kind of close. Basically, manage it. Go ahead, Wolfram.
If you launch this agent and tell it to set up Hermes agent, it should be
everything is going to work as far as I understand. I've chatted with a person in Google who did like a very similar thing, but yes, it could essentially get very, very close as well. Managed agents will get their own sandbox within Google with a huge overhead of memory that you could like potentially achieve. You can like run llama models in there. I think, Nisten, this is the one I wanted to highlight you about this, and for you to go and try to figure out what the hell is this all about. It's a production-ready Linux sandbox, full Linux sandbox, and you launch Google like agents via one API call, and it's just a bunch of stuff that happens in the managed agents. Okay, managed agents, we're going to talk about this as well. And XAI launches Grok Build. It's an agentic CLI like Cloud Code and Codex and other ones, and it's an early beta for Super Grok heavy subscribers. If you post stuff about Grok Build, incredible stuff, and say it's amazing, Elon Musk will retweet you. That's all I know about Grok Build. I didn't want to pay the $300 in addition. I think I have enough subscriptions, but they are working on this and they're trying to do very aggressive pricing as well. So early beta for Grok Build, which is their CLI tool that uses the obviously Grok 4.3. In this week's buzz, Wolfram, you want to cover this week's buzz just like the TLDR headlines, and then we're going to dive into this?
Yeah, basically, I just wanted to point out there is an AI developer meeting in Cologne. It's been happening for a couple of years. So when we are doing this week's buzz, I will tell more about it, but I will speak about Wolfbench on this. And also, Weights and Biases is a sponsor and has a booth at and talks at the ICRA, the International Conference on Robotics. So yeah, that will all happen in about 2 weeks.
Amazing. And I think we'll land with this. Folks, vision and video, Google DeepMind drops Gemini Omni, their new multimodal input and output. Honestly, this can live in the main releases events as well, because Omni is not just a video model. Omni is a fully multimodal input and output. This model can ingest text, video, audio, images, and can spit out text, video, images, audio, and lip sync, and do a bunch of other stuff. This is an incredible release that people are comparing to Sedence too for some reason, and they absolutely should not. This is just a marvelous model that we're going to test live here, and we're going to do things with that model. So Gemini Omni launched the Google I/O. It's the first create anything from anything model. It starts with conversational video editing. So the unique thing about this is that you can talk to the video and say, hey, add this, add that. So essentially like Nano Banana for video. I think this is what TLDR, folks. Let's dive in. I want to start with Omni. I think Omni was the biggest like crazy unlock from the conference. I want to just show you something that I created with Omni. I think how about that as a start? So Google launched this Google Omni, Google's first conversational video editor. This is how it is framed, but I think it's not even a video editor that's the point here. The point here for us, for listeners of Thursday AI, is that this is an AI model that has the intelligence of Gemini and the previous abilities of VO1 or 2, the world understanding, the physics understanding, the how to simulate physics. LDJ, I think you were excited about like Omni in the before. Do you have any exciting comment about Omni do you want to add to the show?
Yeah, the video generation specifically and the demo of kind of personalized education, being able to ask it something like, hey, the really stereotypical question of why is the sky blue? And I don't know if you guys saw that demo, but it pretty much showed this whole video. It was either at specifically the Google event or on their social media. But yeah, it showed like this really cool, it looked like a well-produced video. Like there's some little nitpicking critiques I had about it, but overall it's pretty good. And I think if my son, which is not born yet, but if my son was to have watched that and learned from it, I think it would be like a net positive educational experience for him.
The personalized education is absolutely dope. The thing that I love, and I will show you guys hopefully now. Let me see if I can share a tab with audio because I think audio is very important. I'm going to go find the videos and the library. I need to find the library. Okay, so this is kind of the way to create with Omni, right? You go to Gemini, google.com, and they now have a new tab here called the videos. Let's go to library and I'm going to show you some of the videos that are created already. So here is a video where I asked claymation explainer of protein folding. Okay, you guys ready for this?
Proteins are the body's molecular machines, but to work, fold into a perfect shape. Shape determines function, allowing life to happen.
So a very brief explanation of amino acid and protein folding, okay? And then I added my own face and said, replace this character with Alex from this pic.
Proteins are the body's molecular machines, but to work, they must fold into a perfect shape. Amino acids twist and fold into a clump. Shape determines function, allowing life to happen.
It skipped a little bit of a word, but it just used my likeness and created this within the video. I'll show you another one where I just took my cat and I asked them to animate my cat and provided a bunch of pictures. Okay, so this is Sonia, my cat. The followers of Thursday are familiar. I added just a bunch of pictures and then they created this.
You think you can just wake me up? I was having a great dream about tuna.
It even recreated your hand.
Yes, it has my hand in there that I'm like
the right size too.
Dude, I think they took this from this picture. It does feel like my hand. Like it does feel like.
You think you can just wake?
This literally looks like a hand. The hair, everything. Yeah. Here, look, similar. The thing that I want to highlight is, do you guys see the teeth? This is cat teeth. That they absolutely added the most uncanny valley thing where you use image generation on dogs and pets generally is that they add human teeth sometimes and it looks awful. I was very surprised by the teeth here. And I actually showed this to the people in DeepMind. The failure modes of this though is that I told them she's a Russian speaking female cat. Please regenerate with a different voice. This did not work. So let's look at this one.
You think you can just wake me up? А ведь мне снился такой сон про тунца.
So this is a very interesting failure mode. I asked it to change it to a female voice and the Russian speaking female voice. It changed only part of the video into Russian and did not change to female voice at all. So the editing...
They got to work on their training data set for that.
Yes.
This is how female cats sound. How do you know?
How does the model know? So here's the next thing. Because it's multimodal and inputs and outputs, Wolfram, I tried to actually generate a cat sounding voice in 11 Labs and kind of upload that because it's multimodal in input and output. Apparently, even though it's multimodal inputs and outputs fully, they're not supporting audio uploads yet or audio generation yet. So technically the model can ingest audios as well. But I think the only way it can do now is if you provide a video clip and not just a separate MP3 upload. So I wasn't able to do that. Did you guys see any very, very cool examples? I think friend of the pod FOFR that used to work in Replicate and now is working as part of the Google had some beautiful examples that I absolutely want to show. FOFR, he is part of the Google AI Studio team, has this most incredible inventive prompts and generations. Here's an example of that.
So I was looking at this AI influencer called Fofa. They have been around for quite a while now. It is honestly just kind of mid.
You can see multiple things. Here's a 2x2 grid with 3 edits with Omni. The original is on the top left. On the right, he's making her invisible, but putting gloves. On the bottom left, people are coming and taking the frame picture from behind the scene. And then the other one is changing the outfit. So let's take a look.
So I was looking at this AI influencer called Fofa. They have been around for quite a while now. It is honestly just kind of mid.
I love this, make her invisible with the glasses. The editing is just absolutely incredible. But he did another one.
So I was looking at this AI influencer called Fofa. They have been around for quite a while now.
This model is really, really fun to to use. I'm going to ask folks, if folks in comments as well, if you enjoyed editing things in Omni. The thing that we must say is that it's not available in API yet. So like one-to-one comparisons are not possible. And also the editing experience is definitely not available in the API as well. Any other comments about Omni, folks, before we move on? I do want to talk about the Seedance comparison. I think you guys mentioned this as well.
Sure. Right.
So the immediate reaction that we saw for Google releasing this is that a lot of folks felt disappointed. They were expecting VO4 and kind of like a jump in whatever. And I think this comparison was mainly to Seedance 2.0 from ByteDance, which is the leading kind of video generation in quality. All the crazy clips that you see of, I don't know, Chuck Norris roundhouse kicking everybody throughout Hollywood is like mostly from Seedance, which is very interesting from two reasons. One of them is ByteDance does not care about IP at all. So, you know, obviously the generations of those can differ, but also those are different models. Those are absolutely like different approaches, different models. And I think it's very important to explain why. And I think since we have a little bit of time on the show, I want to show you a video clip that I recorded with, I had the awesome luck to chat with Jeff Dean, chief scientist of Google for the past however years. And I want to show you the video of me asking him why Omni is different.
In the same way that Nano Banana suddenly brought a Gemini model to image generation and let you interactively edit that image with, you know, the full capability of a multimodal Gemini model. You could, you know, say, please make the sky purple instead of blue, but everything else will remain the same.
Just a chat in.
And you also input images, like, please add this dog, and have a picture of your dog or whatever. The same thing is what Omni brings to video. So now you can generate video with a text prompt or images and say, please make these people walking down the street or whatever. But you can also interactively edit the video in the same way that you can interactively edit images with it.
And the intelligence is from Gemini part of the stack, and then
it's trained end to end.
It's trained end to end. So it's not like a VO plus a text model like jumbled together. And the Omni multimodality on input and on outputs. Can you talk about that? Like, can this model generate just voice, for example, like a voice MP3, or is the part of it is it generates voice in addition to video and syncs them together?
It generates both.
Yeah, product doesn't have the.
But yeah.
So the model is capable of just doing different separate, including text, right?
Yeah.
Without even having to generate anything.
Sure.
How is that compared to like other Gemini models? Where would you put it in the stack of like Gemini 2.5, 3, 3.5 now? That model intelligence wise.
Quite capable model.
Yeah.
It's like similar to a Flash level recent Flash model.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a chat with Jeff Dean, who explains to you that.
Sorry to interrupt you. That was a very good question because, I mean, he didn't answer it. But remember how we saw 2 weeks ago that there was that Chinese architecture or something that did manage to do fully end-to-end stuff, image modeling with just the transformer, like without having a separate language model and then having the VAE and diffusion stuff. So they just went for like a pure multimodal. So this is, I think, Google's first pure multimodal, and I do think that's somewhat of a big deal.
I think it's a big deal.
He didn't fully confirm that, but yeah, so it's a complete change in the architecture, and I guess due to the training data and the size, it was comparable to the Flash model, but it is definitely not the Flash model. Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually.
Demis Hassabis, who was on the stage, talked about the Omni model being the most important thing towards kind of AGI. The model need to understand the real world as well. Omni is available on Gemini, Google.com, and you're welcome to use it and test it out. I think it's many people didn't like fully discover the capabilities of Omni or how to prompt it or how to play with it, as usual with these big releases. Let's talk about everything else beside Google I/O, because we're going to cover Google I/O with Logan as well, and I don't want Google I/O to be the only thing we talk about. Let's talk about Composer 2. Do you guys see Composer 2? Let's definitely open this up, please, because I think it's an important thing.
2.5, right?
Yes, Composer 2.5. Thank you, Nisten. Folks, Cursor is back. Many people like dismissed Cursor with the launch and whatever, but Cursor is absolutely back, and they have a great pre-training and post-training team. Composer 2.5 from the team of Cursor is a continued training on top of Kimi K 2.5, a Chinese model with permission. and now it's training partly on Colossus. And so Elon Musk, space uncle, is getting very excited about this as well. Just look at these numbers. On Terminal Bench 2.0, Cursor is 69.3, where Opus 4.7 is 69.4. Obviously, GPT 5.5 is significantly higher than all of them. We know the GPT 5.5 is a very good model, but a big jump from Composer 2. Sui Bench Multilingual 79%, getting close to Opus, and Cursor Bench, their own benchmark, top of the of the tasks that people use Cursor to do. This model beats Composer 2, obviously, and comes very, very close to the max Opus 4.5 thinking and GPT 5.5. Very close, 63%, while being 10x cheaper. All those benchmarks, while it's $0.50 per million tokens for input and $2.5 million per million output tokens.
Yeah, they got those B300s now from Colossus too, because all the B200s went to hosting Opus for Anthropic. I would have liked to see SW Bench Pro and not necessarily the multilingual. I think they just have much better data to train multilingual. But yeah, at this point, if you have one of the biggest single batches of B300s, you should be able to get something good. But I am making an assumption here that it wasn't like as good as SW Bench Pro. And I would actually like to see some type of arena scores and the artificial analysis one, because Qwen3 Max also came with like very, very high, but then like on the arena and stuff, it was still like Opus 4.5 level from a year ago. So I would like to see some more, but yeah, this is going to be not bad. I mean, all the models are getting kind of good now. So there's that.
The thing that is big here, Nisten, I think, is they're training in 10x total compute model after this one. So Composer 3 or whatever they're going to call it is going to be 10x this with that efficiency as well. I find it very interesting. The Composer Cursor out of nearly nowhere is coming out as fighting frontier labs on coding. And we'll talk about this when Logan gets here a little bit. But effectively, all of the big labs have realized that the path towards full AGI is a general coding agent. OpenAI have discovered this after the Cloud Code. First of all, Anthropic went on a ham with Cloud Code, and then many people started using Cloud Code for everything. Then OpenAI with Codex, and now OpenAI 100% focuses on Codex and generalized coding agents. Google bought Antigravity, didn't do a lot with it, and now Google is putting Antigravity first on pretty much everything. And now Cursor that has been kind of the leading AI agentic editor for a while and has a lot of data, is getting almost acquired by SpaceX for their data and their expertise. And now they're becoming this like, oh, ID is dead. So what's going to happen to Cursor? No, Cursor is now training coding models.
I even said this nearly like 8 months ago or so when doing the medical stuff, that I was telling like actual doctors is this thing has to be completely agentic. Like we can't just look at benchmarks and stuff. It has to go look up papers, look up results, reason stuff out, troubleshoot, try multiple times. It has to all be agentic, and you basically have to use coding models. That's where we're at.
So Cursor is doubling the usages for this next few weeks of Cursor 2.5, Composer 2.5. You can go and test it out. There's a bunch of novel architecture stuff like Moon Optimizer things, and you can even run it in a faster variant, which costs more. So it costs $3 per million tokens and 15, which is still cheaper than other fast tiers. And fast is the default option as well. And I think it's very, yeah, go ahead, Wolfram.
There was also always, in recent times, more discussion, is fine-tuning dead or not? Do we need to fine-tune if we have such general capable models? And I think this shows that it is not dead. And usually most people were fine-tuning smaller Qwen models, for instance, because they were small. And so you could achieve in specific areas better scores. But this is a big Kimi model. So it's not just a little Qwen that is being fine-tuned, but one of the biggest models that are available for open use.
Parameter model.
Yeah. It shows what you can achieve with this, that they could out of nowhere basically get in the chart that way and have.
I will say, Wolfram, let me just add this image here to the stage. I don't know if I would call this fine tune. I literally, as you were talking, I wanted to go and find this like infographic. 80% of the compute for Composer 2.5 comes from additional training in RL. Do you see the graphic? Just on the sheer size of this. Kimi K2 was 7.5% of the total training time and things. 2.5 was kind of the fine tune, the base 2 Kimi, and then 85% was composer training in RL. This is how much they're showing. Like, hey, we took an excellent base and we just like went ham with it. But yes, I agree with you. It's like this is post-training synthetic data. Have you guys actually tried it? I didn't have chance. I was on Google I/O. Have you like played with this a little bit? Have you like seen how like what it can do?
I have not yet.
Not yet. But would it be an interesting candidate for Wolfbench?
100%. Cursor's CLI with Cursor 2.5, I think, with Composer 2.5 could be very interesting to see, especially if we are starting measuring speed and token performance on Wolfbench as we do if we try to show it.
And also, you can compare it with Kimi 2.5. It's base.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think this.
I will add it.
Yeah, I think it eats Kimi 2.5 for breakfast. I feel like maybe not 2.6, but based on everything they're performing. So the thing that I have here notes is that the Cursor engineers dogfooding internally just switched to this and did not start switching back to like the bigger models, which is a very, very big deal. And again, partnering with SpaceX to train a significantly larger model from scratch using 10 more compute on Colossus 2 million H100 equivalent cluster. Just the amount of GPUs Elon bought and are underutilized is staggering. Do we talk about this? That like most of these were idle, and then somebody decided, "Fuck it, we'll sell," and now they're selling GPUs to other labs versus just training Grok on it, because there's only so much you can do with Grok. I find it just like what's going on.
Does that mean that the models are not being used that much, or that they just have so much unused capabilities? Because I think we will be seeing this a lot more, that now humanity has not woken up to AI yet. What we are seeing right now are just a top percentage of people who are into AI, who are using these things and using them a lot. But yeah, it will only take a couple of months, I think. And then even more people will realize what agents can do and use them. So we are just at the beginning. And that relates to what I also have a news item about OpenAI selling guaranteed compute, where you can go into a contract for a couple of years and they guarantee that you will have the compute. So I think right now they are throwing out all the tokens that you can use. But I think over time, the more people wake up to this, we really have to accelerate the data center building. Otherwise, we will get token limited, basically. I think it's kind of a currency that is very limited. Right now, only a few people are using it. The gold rush has just started. But over time, I think that will be really important. Those people who have the GPUs, they will be the ones who can determine who can build what. Because AI allows you to build basically anything. But if you don't have the tokens for that, you will be sitting like if you don't have electricity. You can't do much.
LTJ, go ahead and then listen.
Yeah, for Colossus, there was some news spreading about like only 11% of the GPUs utilized and things like that. But it seems like based on the original reporting, that is actually specifically talking about training efficiency, like when you're actually training, what percent of the peak flops possible are you actually using? So it seems like it's not actually true that it's only 11% of the GPUs being used, like some people were saying. However, there is Colossus 2, which right now Anthropic, from what I've seen, it's only Colossus 1 that Anthropic is basically using and reserving, and Colossus 2 is basically their next gen supercomputer.
It's the nomenclature that I've seen like going around.
And now I think Epoch AI estimates Colossus 2 is already like roughly around 2x or more the compute of Colossus 1. So it's definitely doesn't seem like most of their compute is just being given to Anthropic here.
No, definitely not most. I think they will only give what they can give. So folks, we're kind of like not switch topics, but like we're adding topics to the top of the previous topics, because both these items, the Cursor Composer 2.5 is being trained, and the next one is gonna go on Colossus 2. And Anthropic was revealed to be paying $1.25 billion, $2.5 billion per month for AI compute to run inference on the Memphis Colossus facility as well. This is a bombastic deal that allows Anthropic to like serve more AI inference at scale. which is crazy. And now Anthropic is actually feeling like less restrained. They're still restrained. Nisten, any comments on the Anthropic deal or SpaceX AI IPO S1?
I mean, on the data center build, just based on what Wolfram said, because I hold a regular talk on Mondays with doctors and stuff on the MedTech lobby, and we were talking about humanoid robots, and they're having some pretty good success now with them delivering supplies and stuff in hospitals and ER rooms. And then I said, okay, but do you know? I know you guys hate Elon, but do you know how many GPUs you need to run that? Because this is looking great. They're starting to get very good. But do you have the capability to actually run that for everyone? Because there's going to be 2 billion or 3 billion seniors by 2050 in the world. You need a lot more data centers to provide that. People are just waking up to how much AI we need. And even here in Canada, I thought we were pretty advanced, but last year they did a survey of business owners to ask them how's their AI adoption going. That was in July 2025. It was only like 12% had adopted it. So yeah, all of this build out is not.
Can we talk about the water thing real quick? I really want to talk about the water thing because
it's whole hysteria around it.
Many people who don't like AI now have a new talking point that data centers are using a lot of water instead of giving this water to people. This is a very similar talking point to crypto from before, data centers, crypto GPUs as well. But I found this one stat very appealing to how to refute the hysteria around water usage. California almonds use roughly 3 to 5.5 million acre feet of water per year. This is 4 to 7x more times than all of the data centers in North America combined in 2025. We give and spend more water on almond making that like 95% of it goes to China. It's all export anyway. Then all of the data centers, not only GPUs, just all of the data centers, Intel's, like all of the thing that powers the banks, the hospitals, everything, a year. 7 times more water goes to fucking almonds.
This misconception started out of there was one paper or one study published, and they messed up the milliliters with the liters in that study, and then it got corrected. So they ended up showing, I think it was in Chile or something, that they were using 1,000 times more water than they were using. Also, the reason that Amazon has built data centers that don't use water at all, but they end up using about 30% more electricity. So that's the only reason. Like if you just had more power, they just wouldn't use any water at all.
Yeah.
But even if you calculate for what they do, so the water that's being used is just as the liquid coolant, which has gotten very hot from the GPUs, goes through the cooling loop. There are these big like metal grids on the roof, and they just run water through them, and that water evaporates, and that just makes part of the cooling system a lot more efficient for the chillers. And that's the only thing. Like it doesn't even have to be drinking water necessarily. You could just cool it with wastewater because you just need that evaporative stuff, and it all just goes back into rain anyway. There's more calculations on this. Like the mass hysteria that's going on around it is just nuts.
We have to put this in the place, please. Okay? And the comment is, but Valley girls need almond milk lattes. I think it's like very hilarious. Let's wrap up.
One more thing. The total usage for the Colossus 1 cluster was the equivalent for 2.5 In-N-Out burger joints. Like if you calculate the water usage for raising cattle. So
that's crazy. I saw Naval tweet that the new IQ test has dropped, whether water concerns are an issue for you or not in terms of like data center moratoriums. I want to call out Colleen from the comments that says that in the US, there are data center moratoriums bills being passed in Congress now. And a lot of it is the water hysteria, fear-based factor. But we know that politics is fear.
Yeah, so super quick. So one of the things people talk about with water usage in data centers is evaporative cooling. And that's when you basically evaporate water to release heat into the atmosphere. And then that also releases a bunch of steam into the atmosphere and everything. When you look at most of the top 5 largest capacity data centers right now, as measured by Epoch AI. I've taken a deep dive into them, and most of them are just using full closed loop cooling and no evaporative cooling. And there's this idea that all these major data centers from the big players are using evaporative cooling, and that's just not the case here.
All right, folks. Let's go to this week's buzz. Wolfram, I'm gonna take you, have you take this one. This week's is the corner on Thursday. Where we talk about our sponsor, our main sponsor of the show, are the only sponsor of the show, Weights and Biases from CoreWeave. Both me and Wolfram are AI Avengers at Weights and Biases from CoreWeave, and we have some updates for you. So let's go to this week's buzz. All right, welcome to this week's Buzz, a corner where we talk about everything that happens in the world of Weights and Biases and CoreWeave. And to help us guide us through this, Wolfram, I think you have a few items for us that is very interesting for us to discuss, starting with a few evals from Wolfbench, I think.
Yeah. Do you want to look at the Flash evals right now, or just talk about the CoreWeave news?
Let's talk about CoreWeave. All right.
So basically, I shared it in 9 days and 20 hours. The Premier Conference on Robotics and Automation, the ICRA, will happen in Vienna, and CoreWeave is a gold sponsor of this, and will also be. We have people from our company speaking there. So if anyone is interested in automation or robotics, that is a great conference. Check it out and meet us there. I will be coming there on Wednesday until Friday. The whole team will be there from Monday to Friday. And yeah, basically, I'm coming a bit later because there's another event that I will be attending, which is the AI developer event, AI Dev. Let me just put in the link. AI Dev 6 event is this. I sent the link in the chat at the top. So we can put it in the show notes.
So for folks who are AI Dev is in Cologne in Germany, right? And then you're going.
Yeah, and I will have a talk about Wolfbench, and I will show you now the Wolfbench results for Gemini 3.5 Flash. So basically, taking a quick look at it, just a couple of minutes. So we are going. So this is a page where you can join the conference. It has been happening since 2024. So this is the 6th iteration Wolfbench results for Gemini. Let me resize the window a bit so we can take a look. I think this is a good one. Is it okay though?
And I'm going to bring LDJ and Nisten here back to kind of comment on the Gemini 3.5 results. And we're going to cover the Gemini 3.5 with Logan Kilpatrick in a minute as well. Go ahead, Wolfram.
The Gemini 3.5 Flash is on 4th place overall here. And as you know, Wolfbench covers different models with different agents. But with Flash 3.5, I only tested the Terminus agent, which is the official terminal bench agent, and the Hermes agent. And if you just look at these two agents, you see it is on 4th place if we look at Terminus. But at Wolfbench, I look at different metrics. And one is the top score and worst score. So if we take a look at the variance, that is the interesting thing here, that the variance at terminal bench, it's very high. As you can see, the worst score I got on this run, I did 5 runs, and the worst score was 60%, the best score was 79%. So it was quite a lot of variance in there, which is something I have other people seen opinions on the model, that it is sometimes not as reliable. Because, yeah, that's a lot of variance. If you take a look at the other models here, you can see 80% to 74%, it's just 6%, while it's 19% difference, percent point difference between these. So that is with the Terminus agent. So it is a great model. The best score was 79%, which is even higher than the average score. It's almost the same as this is GPT 5.5 extra high.
I need you to zoom in if possible, not like browser zoom in or just like, I don't know. Like that, yeah. Because not Command Plus, but like browser zoom in if you can. Because I'm struggling to understand. Wolfram, give me, is this a good model, sir, or not good model, sir?
For a Flash model, it is amazing, but it is also, it has a high variance, so the reliability is not as good as it is with the other models, which means if your harness has some fallback mechanisms where it can retry stuff, you can get really good results. And if we want to look at a real agent, Hermes agent, it's even on the 2nd place in here. This agent is a real agent doing real stuff. And if you use it with this, the variance is much less. So you can see the harness makes a big difference. In this case, it is not as much variance here. And it even outperforms GPT 5.4, Opus 4.7, Opus 4.6. So it is an amazing agentic model.
Wow.
It has a high reliability here. 51% of the whole benchmark are solved in every run.
Wolfram,
if
could you
look-
pull up the tokens while we wait for Logan? Could you pull up the tokens completely used for this run? I gotta wonder because
will
like I
do this.
saw. Sorry.
If you look at the ceiling, how many % of the whole benchmark can a model solve? It is in first place. So 87% of the whole benchmark can be solved by this model, which means in all of the 5 runs, it solved 87%. Not in one run, but that is the amount of tests of the whole benchmark this model has been able to solve. Which does not mean that it is smarter than any of the other models. In Agentic, we have seen that the speed of the model is also super important because you have 1 hour to solve the task. So a small model or a faster model can just iterate quickly. Even if it makes mistakes, it can correct. So it is actually the #1 model for Terminal Bench 2.0. If you give it 1 hour, it can solve 87% of the tasks, more than any other model. Even the extra high GPT 5.5 can't.
Yes. Let's say hi to our friend Logan Kilpatrick, Logan MTS at Google DeepMind. Hey Logan, welcome back to Thursday, man. It's good to see you. For the first time in forever, I think you guys didn't launch on a Thursday. You launched a little bit before, so it gave us time to prepare, and it gave us time to like have you on and chat with you about a bunch of Google releases. So I doubt that there's any folks who are tuning into Thursday who don't know Logan who you are, but if at all your position changed at Google, I think I researched and MTS was like the latest kind of like nomenclature. Could you give folks like a 1-line bio of what your current responsibilities at Google are?
Yeah, well, it's great to be here, not on a Thursday where we're launching a bunch of stuff so that I have time, to your point, to come hang out and say hi. I lead our developer platform team inside of DeepMind, so focused on bringing the models and new capabilities to developers in the API.
Yes, AI Studio was the big one that you kind of led and are leading for a while. The AI Studio, I think, is the main interface where people can like get started very easily. I think it's a big change for a big big machine like Google, where Vertex was kind of like one of the only services to try and access. I wanted to bring you on first of all to congratulate on a great I/O. Thank you so much for having us for the 3rd time on there as part of the Builders Group, to come and cover it live and chat with all these folks and have the ability to chat with not only you and the AI Studio team, but also them, and also we had breakfast with Jeff Dean. It was just an incredible experience overall. Maybe before we get to the releases, would love to hear kind of like what goes on behind the scenes for you, for your team, and generally like the broader team to bring an event like this to folks. Would love to like just get your experience from behind the scenes, how that happens.
Yeah. I mean, the shout out to the Google marketing teams for making it all happen. There's so many people working so hard to pull up I/O. It's like a event at that scale is exceptionally difficult. And it was cool to see, like, I feel like last year the story was like very model centric. And it's actually, I think, a very cool step forward that like the story this year, I feel like felt more to me like we're bringing AI into the products that we offer across Google, because at the end of the day, like that's actually what matters to our customers. It's like a positive sign to me. And as you sort of look at the technology trends that happen, it's a positive sign that like the underlying technology is becoming less about the story from a product perspective, and the product story is becoming like how you actually help improve people's lives. And so that I think is a very positive trend line. And obviously still we had cool new models with Flash, and obviously Omni is a new release for us, which is super exciting.
So I actually had a chat with Jeff Dean about Omni that I posted about. It was like really, really cool to hear. I'll tell you this like small tidbit. I don't know if you like heard about this or not already, but like there was like a brunch. JD, the guy who organized this from DeepMind, shout out to JD for the incredible job he did bringing all of us together. Jeff Dean, as I was coming into breakfast, JD is like, "Hey Alex, Jeff Dean's sitting there. Go have breakfast with Jeff Dean right now." I was like, "Yeah, fuck it, let's go." So I'm running, I'm sitting down, and then some other folks, and this time you guys had like more expanded kind of tent. So like there was folks from YouTube, folks from Instagram, maybe some less technical folks, right? Because now we're talking about products. And so some folks sat by us, and one of them turned to Jeff and was like, hey, what's your name? You don't know who Jeff Dean is? Come on. It was really funny. He's like, I'm Jeff. What do you do? I'm a chief scientist at Google. So anyway, I recorded like a brief section with Jeff about Omni models with the ability to edit videos, which is like incredible. We already covered this on the show, so I won't take up your time covering Omni quite yet. What I do want to chat with you about is how much of the product surface area is turning towards agentic, right? So obviously, I think Sundar was on stage and talked about 900 million people using the Gemini app on its own, not even just the models, just the Gemini app, which is just incredible. And then he had this like graphic of all of the Google's properties and products that have over 1 billion users, which is I think like 7 or so. Like there's YouTube, 13. Gmail, Drive. I'm number dyslexic, but 13 properties of like 1 billion plus. Gemini is coming up there very, very soon. Like the way it's growing as well. And some of them are like above 3.5 billion. And the Gemini intelligence experience is coming to all of them as well. We chatted about this. This felt to me like more of an important story than the actual model evals benchmarks as well. This intelligence now uplifts all of those people in all of those products. You talk about this a little bit more?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think I'll make 2 comments. Like, I've thought a lot about like, why is Google so well positioned? And actually not even, I think well positioned is the wrong framing of this. People always talk about like, oh, it must be so nice to be Google. You have all these things, you can make AI and, bring it to people. I frame it as more like it's an obligation and like a requirement for us to do this. And I think the reason why that's the case is because you look at the products that we actually offer and you look at sort of where customers want those product experiences to go. And AI is not like a bolt-on thing that we sort of have to spend a bunch of time thinking about. How is AI going to impact, Google Docs or search or any of these other things? Like it is like the most obvious thing that you could possibly imagine, that having great models and great technology, great AI technology is going to fundamentally accelerate users inside of those products. And so we have this like imperative in order to go and build great models. Like it is foundationally an accelerant of Google's business, of their products, et cetera, et cetera. It's also interesting to see this like through line across all 13 of those billion user products and many more products that are much smaller is Gemini. And I think we actually, as Google, did not have that through line before. You could think about like some of the infrastructure layers internally inside of Google were sort of like a substrate of this, but it was nothing that was user facing. Like maybe your Google account was the only thing that was sort of, I think there's this like huge, it manifests in this like cross Google effort of like literally like, an Apollo era mission of like that many people across Google working to make these models possible and bring them to our products and sort of help our customers understand how to use them. And like, it's at that scale from an infrastructure investment and a human capital investment. And so it's crazy to see, and it's fun. Yeah, it's fun to see the progress that's taking place across those products.
An additional progress that's happening is agentic, and I really want to talk about that specifically. It feels like many of the big labs, frontier labs, kind of realized that the coding agents is the way to kind of generalized agents as well. So OpenAI obviously with Codex and their investment in Codex, Cloud Code's insane success from Anthropic as well. It was a Sundar, Demis, and then Varun from Antigravity. And Antigravity is now pretty much like also kind of throughout. I know you guys are using Antigravity internally for like internal version. So I don't necessarily want you to comment on the feature set as much as of kind of like how Antigravity plays into a global role of agentic inside Google, agentic Gemini inside Google. If you can comment on that, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
I think it is. I mentioned like sort of Google's infrastructure had historically been this through line, and then we sort of had Gemini as this through line. And now actually the anti-gravity agent harness is the through line. And sort of as all of those products, again, like very naturally, we don't have to like make this stuff up. It's just like the obvious direction the product should be going, become agentic. It's actually an accelerant for a lot of those product teams across Google and infrastructure teams to not have to reinvent the wheel, to not have 14 different agent harnesses powering all the experiences. Like we have a single agent harness, it powers those experiences internally. And IO is fun actually, because we get to sort of bring the agent harness to developers as well. And so if you're sort of however you build and you want to build, if it's hosted API, if it's, on your own device locally, if it's, on infrastructure that you run in some server somewhere, like all across all of those surfaces, you actually have access to that harness and can continue to build with it, which I think is super interesting and important. I had a bunch of conversations with folks at IO, and a lot of fun conversations, sort of talking about this like model product harness symbiosis. And sort of that's, I think, the direction. And that's where we want to be. I think there's edges and there's bugs and there's all that stuff. And we'll sort of keep spinning the flywheel in order to make sure that it spins effortlessly. But that is the direction of travel, is if you can get the product model and harness spinning in the same direction, things work. And it's a really magical experience. And I think that's sort of where we're heading towards.
We have a mental model here on Thursday called model harness context, right? So it's very hard to predict what will change, because a year ago nobody thought about like personal agentic harnesses like OpenClaw Hermes, and then suddenly they're like everywhere, including Gemini Spark that's launching soon for folks who are not as technical, don't want to install as much with native access to APIs. And then the things that will not change: models will continue improving, harnesses will continue building better and like getting better tools for models, and then personal context for people with skills, etc. So it's very easy to hear your way of saying this with the product, kind of like a combo.
Like actually, like you start to see this like infrastructure specialization for these different use cases as sort of the flywheel spins. And then if you can get the right infrastructure, it can be just like a massive amplifier of how fast you can spin that flywheel.
So I want to add like one more comment about not necessarily the models, but the other stuff that people may have missed from the launches. There's a bunch of stuff for developers. Would love for you to comment on the SDK in general. Folks can now run the Antigravity SDK harness pretty much everywhere. And the pretty much everywhere, the additional thing that I would love for you to tell us about is managed agents. I think there's like a super cool launch that like went completely like under the radar. I would love for you to like tell us about that. Managed agents, I think, is a very important release that you guys had there.
I think we've been, for folks who haven't been sort of closely following this, we built this next generation API called the Interactions API. The goal for the Interactions API was sort of looking around the corner and so sort of how is the usage of AI systems evolving? Historically, you were just interacting with a model, you would send in tokens, you would get out tokens. It was actually relatively simple. And then all this sort of agentic tool use stuff started to happen, those sort of reasoning models happened, and it sort of gets actually pretty clunky to try to use like sort of the past era of, input output style APIs with this new era of models. I think probably like 9 months ago, we started building the Interactions API. And in December, we launched it to the world, and we launched it with our first hosted agent, which was Deep Research, sort of as like the initial agent that we were making available to customers, in addition to still being able to interact with the models and actually making the developer experience better for folks who wanted to just interact with models. And then 2 days ago, we launched Managed Agents, which is sort of the ability to take a hosted anti-gravity agent, customize it, and use it for whatever your experiences are that you want. And it'll sort of spin up a VM, and you can sort of add in all the context that you want. And sort of the model and the agent will just go off and do stuff for you on your behalf, which is really cool. This is definitely like the first step in managed agents. I think we've got a very long roadmap of stuff that we want to do. There's so much that we want to build with managed agents, but it is really exciting to like completely, I think our push is always, an angle that we're trying to look at this through is like, there's, tons and tons of sophisticated customers out there who can, do all the customization that they want to do. We want to give people control, but we also want to significantly reduce the barrier of entry. I think Google has like a unique worldview on this. I think we should make it so that everyone can build with this technology. And I think managed agents is like another attempt to do that. Like every developer, even if you've never built an agent before, should be able to come to the Gemini API, should be able to use managed agents and like actually have an agent go off and do stuff on your behalf, which is super exciting. So it's available now, powered by Gemini 3.5 Flash. Please send us feedback. Ali, Mariano, Philip, so many other folks on the team have been pushing super hard to sort of bring this to the world. Like thousands of people have already like actually started to put those agents into production too, which is really cool. So.
And there's a full managed Linux environment in there, just for folks to understand. Wolfram, I think you have a comment for Logan. And Logan, I know we have you for just a little bit of time. So Wolfram, one last comment for Logan, and we'll... Yeah.
Since you mentioned control and customization, so congratulations on Antigravity 2. When version 1 came out, I jumped on it immediately, and I actually built something like OpenClaw for myself that way because it had such great browser control. So before OpenClaw and all that happened, I was using Antigravity at the core. And I was always asking, why couldn't it be open source so I could contribute and that I could have my agent read its own source code? And the self-development, self-improving agents we have now, they are only possible because we have open source that the agent knows itself and can change itself. So my question or wish would of course be, that was a great thing about Antigravity, Google Gemini CLI. It was an open source tool. Now that is gone and it's all Antigravity, but there's no open source anymore. So from my perspective as an avid agent user, I would love to have my agent have the ability to change and improve itself and submit the patches to the core. Like we are all using Kubernetes or Linux because the backbone is always open source. So in that regard, basically, is there a chance or do you have plans in that regard?
I think I actually spent a bunch of time at I/O talking to people about this, and there was lots of folks who were sort of asking about the things, also folks online sort of commenting around sort of the desire to have, given that the Gemini CLI was open source, some of the anti-gravity stuff open source. I think it's actually less of like a sort of deeply strategic product choice right now, and I think it's more of just, it's like it still feels like we're in like chapter 1 of the anti-gravity story, and I think obviously like open source has its own set of constraints that come with it, sort of the maintenance burden, and sort of as a former open source maintainer who sort of thought about this a lot, and also just like the expectations that you set for people when you have an open source project. So I think it's definitely not something that's out of the cards. It hasn't been the focus and the thing that's like very top of mind. I think also just the era that the Gemini CLI was building for, I think is a slightly different era now that we're in today. But who knows? We'll see. We'll see how it ends up shaking out. I've definitely seen the feedback and have been passing along to folks on the team. So I think it's a super reasonable ask. And yeah, hopefully as the transition for folks as they explore the Antigravity ecosystem. Again, a lot of this is based on feedback from developers. Folks were giving us the feedback that like, hey, we have too many products across the Google developer ecosystem. Let's consolidate and sort of try to make sense of it. And so the direction of travel is like trying to consolidate this stuff under the Antigravity umbrella so that there's more sort of clarity from a product perspective.
I want to say, speaking of feedback, Logan, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of extra time. Speaking of feedback, the amount of feedback, first of all, you guys collected from us in Google I/O with Josh Woodward and some of the folks at the Gemini reception that we did. The folks are actually hungry for like, hey, tell us what's working, what's not working. Some of the stuff that were launched in Google I/O last year maybe did not shake out as much as we wanted to, so feedback. Also, there's a few comments about the Gemini Flash not being Flash and like too many tokens that you've openly on X and other places said, hey, we're listening for feedback, we're listening to this. So just a huge shout out to you guys for like being able to be approachable and like open to that feedback.
It makes my job easy. It makes my job easy, Alex. And like folks send feedback. Like I think people are always like, oh, it's so kind of you to take the feedback. I'm like, literally, this is what I'm being paid to do. This is my job. It's also what I enjoy doing. Like I feel like I'll make one quick comment about Flash.
Yeah,
I was having this conversation with folks yesterday, and my colleague Tulsi Doshi actually made an interesting comment about
also somebody who appeared on the pod before, Tulsi.
Tulsi's she's incredible. We need to go past her Tulsi to make sure she tweets more because she's like very close to the action and sort of dialed in. But the comment that she made, which resonated with me, was like, I think a lot of the comments about Flash is sort of comparing sort of previous iterations of Flash. And the way that I think, and I don't know, we probably didn't land this point clear enough. Flash is sort of built as the workhorse model for these different eras of how people are using AI systems. So I think the original versions of Flash, 2.0 Flash, even 2.5 Flash, were built for an era in which like the predominant product experience of how people were interacting with AI was chat. And I think 2.5 was sort of like a weird step in sort of the middle, and we were sort of moving towards this. But I think like now the predominant product experience of like how people are actually like wielding intelligence is becoming less chat. Like and this would be very interesting if somebody has this, maybe OpenRouter or another platform, like the global token volume sort of, and how the distribution of that token volume has shifted in the last year from like agents doing a bunch of stuff on behalf of users, like in sort of intermediary tool calls or like steps of whatever's happening, versus like a user sending a request and getting a response back. And my assumption, without actually seeing that chart from OpenRouter, though I hope they make this, is like that a lot of the token volume has actually shifted over to this like agentic tool use loop.
Yeah.
And so I think Flash is being like built And so, of course, there's like rough edges, and of course, there's things that we're going to get better on. But the direction of travel is like continue to make a great workhorse model that sort of enables that loop to happen, both like really well and at a price that I think makes it possible to scale this up. So definitely hear the feedback from folks, and we'll do what we always do, which is keep iterating and shipping.
I think it's very important for folks to also understand. And while we're talking about this, I'll bring Wolfbench, which is Wolfram's benchmarking tool, which not only benches the models, but models and harnesses together. That I wanted you to see. We must talk about how much of the flywheel of making this model better at Agentic comes from the internal use of like anti-gravity and different things. So the model and the harness, they work very well together. We haven't had the chance yet to test out the new anti-gravity CLI with the Gemini 3.5 Flash. I think it's very important. I talked with Kevin. How about this? I want you to comment on this as well. A lot of the combo comes from the model looking at kind of the RL usage of the harness itself. And so I think like once people get that, they will start to understand how big and how good the model is. So, you know, the Cloud Code and Opus is the great combo, and different Codex stuff, they are optimizing for Codex inferences. And so I think the Gemini for across all of Google products, but specifically for anti-gravity stuff, I think is going to be very, very important. Wolfram, you want to show Logan some like a brief stat about the testing we did?
What I found interesting, if we look at everything, though, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Wolfbench, so it can look a bit confusing sometimes because I'm showing so many different things. I'm using the terminus, which is Terminal Bench 2.0 and Hermes Agent. And if we look at the ceiling, how many % of the whole benchmark can a model achieve and complete, then Gemini 3.5 Flash with its 87% was, if you just look at the Hermes Agent, it is in the first place. So it achieves, Gemini 3.5 Flash can solve more of the whole benchmark than even GPT 5.5 at extra high, which did 85%.
I think this model is very determined. I think we've gotten a ton of feedback that like Gemini is lazy. And sort of, I think this model is like, you know, maybe a little bit too much of an overcorrection to that feedback, but like the model is exceptionally determined. I think this is in part some of the feedback about like cost and sort of, you know, as you get the model to like try to do more and spend a longer time reasoning, it does end up actually costing more in order to pull off. Definitely trying to find the balance of sort of like the determinism, how determined the model is, how lazy it is, the cost, etc. So this model definitely errs on the side of being more determined.
Especially when it involves a lot of tool calling and getting to that point, like trying to iterate. And I think I've also noticed that. Logan, we've taken a bunch of your time. I really, really appreciate it. And I know how busy you are. I've seen the calendar before from JD. Thank you so much for inviting Thursday Eye, being a friend of the pod as well. And congrats on all of the launches as well. And we'll post the Wolfbench analysis public as well. So you guys
Please,
can, like,
I would love to. It looks awesome. Thank you both for everything you do. And thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming up.
Take care.
Bye-bye, Logan. All right, folks, I'm going to add Logan. I'm going to add folks back on the stage. That was a great conversation. Logan doesn't do a lot of like media, so like we're very, very lucky to have Logan Kilpatrick jump on and kind of talk about this. I love the framing. DJ, we started this show with a little bit of the kind of the controversy about the pricing and the Flash not being Flash. After hearing from Logan, what's your take on where like this Gemini model lands?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like to really get a true picture, we ultimately have to go use it, right?
Yeah.
I think it can definitely at least be competitive for certain tasks and for certain enterprises and for certain price ranges and task difficulty ranges. Yeah.
Yep. Nisten, feedback, comments?
I'm using it right now, and I definitely see the determinism in it.
It is determined, yes.
Yeah, it is very, very determined. I ran the Martian test and it just built like the strangest one. Here's the thing though, because it was so determined, it kept correcting and overcorrecting itself.
Do you have an example you want to show us on the Martian test? I think folks love it when we show them the same test on different models.
Okay, yeah, so I did the same test that we did before. Make a Martian railgun launcher. And this is by far the wildest I've seen this because it got all the calculations correct. Yeah.
There's a lot of detail here.
There's a lot of detail, and it made like a whole like calculation protocol thing.
While you're zooming in this, and let me just, before you begin lunch sequence, I'll just tell folks who are just tuning in now, because like they've seen Logan and somewhere else, making a Martian escape velocity simulator from Mount Olympus Mons is the Nisten's approach to try out like different new models. We've been trying this on the show for every new model since for like 2.5 years ago or something. They became kind of crazy, the simulations, but I've never seen it with as much detail as this. As much, like maybe extra detail, but definitely never seen it as much detail as this.
Yeah, it just went completely nuts. I wouldn't say that this is the best one.
The best one is like 3D work. Yeah, the Mount Olympus seems not entirely on the planet. That's one thing.
It really followed my advice at making it feel like a game. So it actually did build in a game mechanic, which I had not seen there before. And so I had a fast launch way, and the orbits were working, but I think it is still editing it right now as we go along. So it does actually, okay. It took it a while for it to work, but yeah, very, very interesting model. And I'll stop sharing. And it's interesting that I checked out today with Wolfram's bench. So if this is okay, it's kind of exciting now for Pro, and I'm glad they listened.
This is the workhorse model. This is their Sonnet, or like Sonnet/Hermes. This is like 4 times as fast. It's really fast, by the way. Oh, if I didn't mention this with Logan, they launched a super fast version within Antigravity. So in Antigravity, it's like 12 times as fast as like Opus, because Google has the insane TPUs and TPU-I and TPU-P, Nisten, TPU-T that we haven't had a chance to talk about. They launched like a whole new series of TPUs for inference and for training. They're separate. It's 12 times as fast in Antigravity. And I think that I can comment, because like I don't work there. The reason why they have this is to pull people into Antigravity and to give them like the best experience within Antigravity. It's just like enable this because they can, because somebody else's margin is Google's opportunity, basically. So definitely Antigravity. Folks, we're nearing the 2-hour timeline. We have to talk about the math thing. We have to talk about the AirDOS math thing. I think it's the most important thing that happened outside of Google I/O, and let's talk about this. Who wants to comment? I want to see hands. LDJ, would you want to comment about the AirDOS solution from OpenAI?
Yes.
Do you want to present this first, like what happened, and like the give us the title, and then we'll talk about this.
I mean, the title here: AI disproves 80-year mathematical belief. I guess the executive summary. I'll read that out.
Yeah, please go ahead.
OpenAI just announced that one of their general-purpose reasoning models autonomously solved a famous open problem in mathematics that's been open since 1946. The ERDOS, a planar unit distance problem, the model disproved that, found an entirely new family of constructions with a polynomial improvement, n to the power of 1 plus delta. Tim Gowers, field medalist, reportedly verified the proof, and the key thing here, this wasn't some fine-tuned math solver, it's a general-purpose reasoning model that generated candidate constructions, verified them, and iteratively narrowed things down using algebraic number theory, ideas that humans hadn't explored. Now, some folks are pushing back, saying this is constrained optimization, not a full solve of the asymptotic conjecture, and that's fair. The full ERDOS conjecture for arbitrary n is still open, but still, this is the first time AI has autonomously cracked a prominent open problem central to a field of mathematics.
The number tweet is not important. I want to read this one again.
Sure.
I'm just gonna like zoom in here and just show you folks. This is the first time AI has autonomously cracked a prominent open problem central to the field of mathematics that humans weren't able to crack. This is kind of one of the breakthroughs that we've been waiting for. We've been talking about AI breaking through scientific barriers that humans like were trying to and just couldn't for a while now. And one of the comments that I saw, LJ, I don't know if you saw this as well, Wolfram, that, you know, if you ask a sloth whether or not human climbers are the best climbers, sloth will just like laugh at humans. We have Alex Honnold scaling, you know, like skyscrapers, but we're not built for climbing. So in the same way that humans are not built for climbing, maybe we're also not built for solving mathematics as well. And I think this is the first time that mathematicians, like great mathematicians, are looking at AI after a year ago, AI getting IMO gold comparative to humans, like the most difficult mathematic competitions. And now are looking at AI and saying, oh shit, this thing can do what we cannot do. And I think it's a big deal. I think it's absolutely a big deal. And Nisten and LDJ.
There's a bit of a caveat here, but it is still a big deal because the way it found this problem, so the problem's kind of simple. You have a sheet, a plane, and you just throw a whole bunch of dots in there. And then you have to figure out which dots are exactly one distance apart. So which ones have the exact same distance as all the other ones. And you have to prove that. And even, sorry, I forgot what his, Yeah. Even Erdos, he put up a cash reward way back 80 years ago on who could solve it. And the entire time, people were trying to solve it with to use a grid and use geometry and use like well-known things in this field that a mathematician would use. What happened is that GPT, whichever one this, it hallucinated.
It's an internal model, but it's a general model. Yeah.
To me, it hallucinated a different type of solution entirely, and then just went for it anyway. It tried to solve it algebraically, which is to use like some advanced algebra and combinatorics, which had nothing to do with geometry. So it went off what you would call in the wrong direction. But then by going in that direction, it was, because again, AI has this like cross-disciplinary track, and that applies also within mathematics itself. So instead of treating it like a geometry problem and using a grid like everybody else had tried to use the whole time, it just used completely different very advanced algebra. And then it actually found the proof in there and managed to prove it that way. So it proved it in a completely different way because it just hallucinated a different direction to go into. That's the very interesting part to me. And so it did do something that no human would have really gone in that far in that direction. But I think a human with a GPT, if they've just like trolled around, they might have found that too.
And so, this is the prompt that we're seeing on screen right now. Literally, this is the prompt. The prompt is the basically stating the problem. I think it's very interesting.
I clicked on it earlier.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll find it.
There was some previous like false alarms when it comes to, I think when GPT-5 Pro came out and 5.2 Pro, there's people claiming to have solved the Erdos problem, and initially they thought it was like the first solution, but then it turned out that like there's actually a similar human solution like a decade ago that people just didn't realize was on the internet. And there's like a couple false alarms like that kind of gave mathematicians a boy that cried wolf feeling, and it made them skeptical of every announcement afterwards. And I have some mathematician friends, which I showed them some of the Erdos problems that have been solved by models and some other mathematics problems, and they often will say things that are kind of like skeptical or critical of it. And this is one of the first things I've showed them where they don't really have much to say, and they're like, damn, should I even continue my PhD? Like, you know, and like it shifts from skepticism to like, okay, well, what's the implication of this, you know?
Yeah. And what's the implication of this? I can explain. I don't know the implication of this for mathematicians. I absolutely know that mathematicians with a model like this are gonna solve significantly more problems, cool problems, than mathematicians without tools like this. And I think that the way that we here, maybe I'm talking on behalf of all of you, so I apologize, I'll talk about myself. So when interacting with the model like that, I won't be able to like tell it where to go. In that way, mathematicians that will be able to tell it where to go will achieve that much more with those tools. The same thing is happening to software development with senior developers with AI tools are able to achieve much more. I don't know if you saw Peter Steinberger posting that uses $1.5 million in tokens a month and how much he's able to achieve, right? This is all in the same area. Folks need to go study the stuff to be able to like help AI to get where AI needs to go and to be able to like push it forward. So I absolutely think that there's still future for humans learning the stuff.
I think it's funny when you consider what some critics of AI have been saying, like fancy autocomplete. And now this fancy autocomplete created a novel proof. It generated real novel knowledge in that regard. It shows what AI is capable of. Even if it's a hallucination, just let 1,000 of those hallucinates about some problems and see what comes out of it. That is one thing. And the second, since you said that mathematicians can use these models to achieve a lot. Interestingly, I think maybe if a mathematician would have prompted it to, here's a problem, use geometry to solve this, it would not have found the thing. Maybe sometimes less prompting, especially the more advanced the model is, the more it can go on its own and find a novel solution, perhaps.
And I agree with Wolfram. And I finally found the chain of thought summarization that OpenAI posted in the blog post of how the model got to this realization is like on page 40. The model went through ideas pretty quickly, but when it reached the crucial idea, in the paragraph starting with suppose optimistically that, it honed in on the proof quite methodically. So here's the paragraph. I'm going to read this out loud. I have no idea what it says, but like it's very interesting to see. This is a summarization. It's not a direct chain of thought, but this is like what the model was thinking when it got to this point. Suppose optimistically that K is a high degree CM field in which fixed rational prime P splits completely into principal prime ideals, then the construction is frightening. I found it really funny. I don't know if this is an artifact of the summarization or the model chain of thought really actually like thought it's frightening that the construction that it used to solve the planar unit distance problem with Erdos is an actually frightening kind of thought. But I thought I found it really funny that like this is how the model thinks. Folks, I think this is a great place for us to end the show on. We had an incredible chat this week on the show. I really appreciate everybody who tuned in and listened to Logan Kilpatrick, who is doing a lot of stuff on Gemini. Wolfram, last comment.
Let's end on exhilarating.
I think it's exhilarating for us to see this. I don't think it's scary at all. I think that like it's if anything humbling to see the model is also like, oh, it's good. Like why have no one like thought about this before? Demis Hassabis, the founder of DeepMind, or the co-founder of DeepMind, the Nobel laureate, the creator of AlphaGo and AlphaZero and AlphaFold, basically stood on the stage and said, "Hey, it now feels like we're standing on the foothills of the singularity." Isomorphic Labs is part of DeepMind as well. I think when a person like Demis Hassabis is talking about something like that, I think it's very, very important. And I think he's not a doomer in any shape of the word. He's the most like AGI peeled positive person in the world. And he talks about also responsibility because many people are afraid of what's coming. And also you cannot just like go entirely and be accelerationist with disregard for safety because people are getting to be impacted by some of these things. And to finish on a very positive note, this is why we're here. This is why we're here for the past 3.5 years, because we've identified many people are scared of the progress. Many people don't understand what's going on. LDJ just quoted his mathematicians friends were saying, hey, is it worth for me to even go into deeper mathematics where models can like start to solve things that humans can't? And we say, yes, it's worth for you to go study computer science because you'd be that much better with the AI tools to help create important things in the world, to help create economic value, to help yourself grow. This is why we're here to tell you about the new things that are coming, so you'd be able to use those tools more effectively than before. More effectively, you'd be able to scale yourself up. You'd be able to like use agents. That's why we talked to you about which agent is the best, so that you'd be able to go and try them. That's why we bring you all the news on Thursday to make sure that you are aware of the new opportunities that are opening up, and they're gonna open up all the way. In a side chat with Demis Hassabis, he talked about his famous quote is, AI revolution is going to be, he's predicting 10 times as impactful as the Industrial Revolution, 10 times as fast. 10 times as impactful as Industrial Revolution, 10 times as fast. So 100x, basically, whatever Industrial Revolution changed for the world. If you don't know about the Industrial Revolution, this moved all of us from farmers to basically, what we are today to some extent. And then the internet took us even further. And the AI is going to take us even further than that. There's a lot of positivity in this. And hopefully on Thursday, we bring you a bunch of this positivity and countering the doomerism about the fucking water usage in data centers that uses 1/17 of the almond usage that we send to China. Wolfram, finish up and then we'll close down.
I reposted that and said I would be very disappointed if it's just 10 times the change, because I think every discovery mankind has made, from the fire to electricity, steam machines, industrial revolution, it was always tools we are using, and now we have a tool that actually is an intelligence and raises the intelligence that is available for us to solve problems. This is the first time in all of history that we created an intelligence that can help our own intelligence achieve more, instead of just being a tool to make it faster or better or something.
100%. All right, folks. Nisten, last comment, and we'll finish. Promise you, last comment.
I remember as a kid in a math Olympiad in Albania when the officials were arguing whether we should allow the students to have calculators or not. So it's pretty fascinating that those things are happening again.
Wolfram, I think you sent me the exact timestamp, so let's finish on that. I think it's very important that this week we finish on specifically this. I will move backwards a little bit and share my screen. All right, folks, thank you so much for joining Thursday. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be here after Google I/O first person, and we'll see you next week. Let's finish with this.
Standing in the foothills of the singularity. It will be a profound moment for humanity. This technology will be a force multiplier for human ingenuity and usher in a new golden age of scientific discovery and progress, improving the lives of everyone, everywhere. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of Google I/O.
All right. Thank you so much for joining. We feel it. You all should feel it. And with that, let's finish. And we'll see you here next week. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Wolfram. Thank you, LDJ. Thank you, Nisten. Thank you so much for Logan Kilpatrick for being a friend of the pod and bringing us all this knowledge. And we'll see you here next week. Bye-bye, guys.
Thanks for hosting, Alex.
Of course. Bye-bye.